Uppers. This is the first Word Up of January 2021 or 2021 period. We're already off to a weird start for the year. So welcome everyone. To begin, Word Up, Barry acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabeg people. The Anishinaabeg include the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. So tonight at Word Up, we're changing things up with a panel. We hope to help you start off the new year with a solid plan to write that book or develop your writing skills with three writing instructors and mentors. They offer methods to stay motivated and techniques for better writing. So my partner in crime and thriller writer, Colleen Winter, will take it from here.
All right, so thank you, Linda. So I'm going to be our lovely moderator for the evening. So I just want to, first of all, welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. And then I want to set down a couple norms of behaviors before we start. Basically, this is a place where, all writers are different, all methods of writing are different, everything works differently for different people. So just let's have an open mind tonight and just be open to other ideas and opinions on what works and what doesn't in the writing world, because goodness knows there is lots of variety. I want to ask that while the panelists are on, that you mute your mic so that we don't get sort of background noise. I can mute you from here, so I may do that. So my apologies if all of a sudden you try and speak and you're not muted. You can just unmute yourself on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And then also, we sort of have an agenda with some questions, and I'm going to try and keep us on track. So my apologies if I have to interrupt you. I'm going to try and keep the conversation flowing, but I am going to try and keep everything on track so we can get to as many topics as possible. So on that note, again, thank you all of our panelists for coming. And what we're going to start out with is just all of them are going to give a brief outline of who they are and how they got to where they are. And maybe we will start with Sherry, since you're alphabetically, you're the first.
Okay. Okay, and I hope that we're going to hear your names as well, because I can see some of the names on the boxes, but some of them are not first names. But anyway, just tell me your name when you are speaking. I'd like to know you. So I'm Sherry. I am, I'm a writer, but I'm also a number of other things. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. I teach, I coach writers in a number of different ways. I coach writers on privately through consultation, and I also coach writers through the Humber Film and Media Production Program. Though I have to say I'm in my last semester there this semester. I'm also, I just recently was ordained as a deacon, so that's a bit of a curveball for you. And have begun a kind of new life trajectory working with spirituality and internet outreach. So that's a completely different part of my life now, but I continue to coach writers. I've been coaching writers from the beginning. I've been for I think 25 or 30 years and have developed a process, and I always will. I will go to my grave coaching writers. I've developed a process over the years that's my own that I guess at some point tonight I will speak about that is probably similar to other processes, but which has become sort of the best way I know for myself as the kind of person I am, the kind of mentor I am, to work with writers. I love writing, and writing is a very big part of what I do in all my work. So I think that covers it. I was a playwright for a while, and then when you're this old, you've done many things by now, as I'm sure many of you can, well, not that you're old, but that you can relate to having had many different life pursuits. Okay, Deepam, take it away.
Well,
I'm sorry. I think that's all for me. Yep.
I think you meant Colleen, not Deepam.
No, I meant you. I was saying on to you. You're the next person to describe, I think.
Yes, because we're going alphabetical, Deepam. So you technically are next.
Okay, thank you.
By first.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm
James.
confused.
By
You're
what?
right.
What?
It's James.
I was wrong. It should be James. I was wrong.
I'm confused.
I've already screwed up.
I'm
That's
muting.
okay.
I'm
I'm
muting
glad,
again
Sherry.
because
I'm glad you screwed up, Sherry. It sets the bar for me. Anyway, carry on, James. Sorry. Go ahead, James.
oh, you want me to go first? Okay, or second. All right, I'm James Dewar. I've been writing poetry since I was about 14 or 15. I just turned 70, so that's a long time. I think I've done my 10,000 hours in poetry. I also write short fiction. I'm working on novels, but I haven't completed either one of them. I taught high school for 4 years and then gave it up to go to corporate work. But about 15 years ago, I left that and I started teaching and writing full time. And I was lucky enough to meet Sue Reynolds, and I've hooked up with her, and I discovered the Emerson Writers and Artists method of teaching. And we've been teaching using that method ever since. I primarily teach and mentor fiction and poetry. I spend about half my time on each one, I'd say. I enjoy working with people on the first draft of novels. It's a very unjudgmental approach to writing that in the AWA method. The objective is to get the story down and get to know the characters as quickly as you can and work on refining things about a third of the way in. I also work with second draft, and I do a lot of that. I do more of that at editing at that level, and with one-on-one with novelists. Sue primarily does memoir now. She used to do fiction as well, but she's mostly memoir now. I also like to work with poets. I have 2 poets right now I'm working on with editing their books they want to bring out. With Sue and I have a press called Pecan Press. We publish 2 poets a year. As a full publisher, we pick people to publish based on the quality of their work and the quality of their energy. We believe if you're going to publish someone these days, they got to have the energy to go out and promote the book and do readings. And there's a give and take. We all, in terms of making yourself known out there. I also teach that. I have a 9-week course on how to get your book into the hands of agents. So I'm pretty busy on all kinds of things. I love working with writers. I love the energy of working with writers, and it doesn't matter whether they're just starting out or they've been writing for a long time. I just enjoy being around them. It's been like a second life for me, and I'm so glad I made that decision. And I would never go back to the old life down in Toronto, ever. Anyway, thanks for inviting me and having me here. I really appreciate it. I guess that's all. I don't know what else you want to know, but I'm sick of talking. So over to you, Deepam.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, thank you, Linda and Colleen. I was really honored to be included in this panel, especially, with James, but with Sherry, who a number of years ago was a presenter at the Simcoe County Writers that most of you know about. And I'll talk later about something that she said that has stayed, is embedded in me now. So it's a great honor to be here. I don't consider myself a teacher. I consider myself a mentor and a facilitator. I took my Amherst Writers and Artists training in, I think, 2014 with James. after writing for a number of years in that method. And what's so lovely about that method is that for me, I had been writing quite intensely in the 80s and got a little bit of publication, and then life kind of took me away. I got spiritual, and for some reason I had this notion that writing wasn't a spiritual practice, which of course has been turned completely on its head now. But so I thought the only thing that you should write is devotional poetry. Be a Rumi. If you can't be a Rumi, then don't bother. So there were a number of years that my writing fell by the wayside. And then after raising a child, and I had such an ache to write again, and I had completely lost my confidence. And I met Anna Mackay-Smith, who was a creative coach, and wrote with her for a while. And then she said, you don't need a coach, you need a mentor, you need to go see Sue Reynolds. And so I went to my first AWA sanctuary with Sue, and wept all the way home, because I realized I can do this with this method, with this supportive method. I can write. And that was like coming home for me. So since, that was like 2009 or 8 or something like that. So when I took then eventually I took the training and started to facilitate these workshops. And I just have to say, I'm really excited today, because this afternoon I got a request for my manuscript from Tightrope Books. So that novel that I have been trying to get published for several years, like since 2014, is actually, she called it the first 40 pages compelling. And so I sent her the whole manuscript. So I'm really excited.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is a great feeling. No,
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Congrats.
Okay, so is that it from you, Deepan?
Oh, I think so. I think there's lots of questions here that'll cover maybe some
Yeah.
of the other things. Yeah.
So as we mentioned, we sort of have some questions that everybody will sort of weigh in on. We'll start sort of take turns with who goes first, and then we can mix it up as we go along. So the first question we thought we'd like to hear from you on is, how does writing instruction help, or what is the benefit, or why is it important for writers to do writing instruction? So James, why don't we start with you?
It's an interesting question, because on the surface it seems like the answer is because it does help. And when I first read it, I went, the answer is very straightforward. But on the other hand, having lived a life as a writer and worked with other writers, I realized that the answer is a little more complex than that. It helps because I think writers need to avoid becoming complacent with their writing. I look at the material that I wrote in my 20s and in my 40s and what I'm writing now. I'm a lot better now than I was 20 years ago, and significantly better than when I was 15. So I understand about the world. I understand more. I understand emotion more. We need to write and get instruction to help us write better, because we can all be better writers. And when we start spending time with other writers, I've been fortunate enough to spend many retreats with Deepa and Wads, being exposed to someone who writes as beautifully as she does, but also having her giving me feedback on my writing has been instrumental in making me a better writer. And that's what I'm saying. You need to be out talking with other writers and learning how to write better. And the best way to do that is to share your work with others.
Okay, thank you. Deepan, do you want to have anything to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I sort of a different take on it, because I think also as writing mentors, we need to instill confidence in writers. And so many of us are not confident and are afraid to write. And a mentor, I like to see us as like a platform underneath them to just to hold them. And that is, you know, for me, that was it. So having someone there. So, you know, as a instruction, obviously you're going to introduce people to different possibilities, give them examples of ways that they can get into their writing, that sort of thing. So, I mean, that one of the AWA principles is that, you know, everyone has creative genius, and craft can be taught without damage to the writer. And that's the kind of instruction, if you will, that is important for me, and the way that I learned, and the way I like to support the writers. So that support and instilling confidence is really crucial in the instruction. That's why it's important.
Yes. So yeah, I should add in there, in the interest of full disclosure, that Sherry is actually my mentor. And so when you talked about, you know, feeling like you're, you know, supporting the writer, Sherry makes me feel like I'm the best writer in the entire world. So she apparently is doing her job right. So anyways, you can take it from there.
Yes, and it keeps you writing, right? That's why, because it keeps you
Exactly.
writing.
Yes, keeps you writing.
Yeah.
I always like to say that my job is to work myself eventually out of a job. So that is, but it is, I love what's been said already, and I'm not sure I'm going to add much to that. I think there is a strong difference between mentorship and instruction. I don't actually do instruction anymore. I think partly because in my work, I tend to adopt what I tell clients if it's a good fit, you know, for us both. I tell clients they're my client for life. And so whether they choose to go away or come back or not is fine. It's their choice. Because my overall objective is to develop the writer more than the project. So as you work on different projects, you begin to understand that, oh, this is the strengths and gifts and skills of this particular writer. And here's some areas of challenge and some things that aren't quite as easy for them. So that within the project we're working on, I know that if we can, we will make the strong bits especially strong, and we'll hopefully pull up the challenging bits also. But in the next project, we will work differently, and we'll work to bring forward some of those other challenges. And it's very much what Deepam has said, which is that you have to build up the confidence and the trust first in the mentor-writer relationship. Otherwise, there is no relationship. So that trust becomes the foundation. But it's a trust not based on oh, she's going to flatter me. It's a trust. Yeah, and I know that's not what you meant. Definitely, none of us would think that of the three of us. It is more about understanding who I am or am becoming as a writer, and then trying to figure out how to encourage that and to uphold it. I love the platform image, and how to actually then sort of use what I always like to say is we use the strengths to work on the challenges. So what's going well with the writing, what are the strengths of the writer, is what we use to work with the things that aren't going as well. So Colleen, for instance, she's given me permission to do this, by the way. But Colleen is very, very gifted at atmospheric writing, at the writing of the mood, the scene. And so when we're in a place of things not sort of moving as she would like or whatever, I tend to, or I hope I tend to, encourage her to go back to that, or to especially work within that sphere, because it's when you are reacquainted and reconnected to the thing you do really well, you have that confidence back, and you then are able to feel better about looking at the thing that's, going back to the, to the piece that's feeling like a stumbling block, that's feeling like it's in its way. I think that probably started to get into other questions as well. So I'm going to stop there.
Okay. It's a very fluid topic tonight. So
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah,
talk
yeah.
about what we like to at the same time. I think I'm going to learn more about, what you've been doing to me all these years too.
Oh no.
Um, so the second question was, and maybe we'll start with DPAM on this one. Is there one specific tool or skill that you believe is more valuable than others in terms of developing craft for writers?
Oh, developing craft. Okay. Well,
Or you
is
can answer that in whichever way you interpret.
okay. Yeah, it's well, and actually the answer is the same for both, is because it's listening and paying attention. I'm thinking about the mentorship is what I really try to do is to get behind the writer's eyes, to really see what it is, to find out what it is there. It's kind of what Sherry said, like really, we're all talking about the same thing here. To really get into what they want to convey. So it's really, and it's the same even in a workshop situation, is really developing the ability to listen for what's in the intention, and listen for what's strong, and that's how we learn, is by listening for what's strong. Because I think, oh well, I really love the way that writer used repetition. Let's see if I can work that repetition into this scene, or that kind of thing. So it's and of course we need to read, and we need to go to lots of workshops, and we need to but more than anything, it's that keen sense of listening with everything, that I find has helped me in both mentorship and, even when I'm reading, I'm looking for what's working. Even when I'm reading a novel that's been published, how did they do that? I think about Bel Canto, Anne Patchett's book. So she did a thing that I found I just find absolutely stunning. She had, I don't know how many characters, like 10 characters, and she was jumping around in their heads, which we're told, don't do that. But she did it, and it worked. And every time we were in a character's head, we knew exactly whose character we were in. So, that I study that. Like, how did she do that? I still haven't mastered that, but I'm still fascinated by it. I hope that answered.
Okay, Sherry, did you want to add something?
I've lost track of the question.
Is there one specific tool or skill that you believe is more valuable than others for developing craft?
No.
Oh, that's a good answer. I like that answer.
No, because you're meeting the writer. When you start working with the writer, you're meeting them where they are. I think we're going to be saying very similar things tonight, as sounding like you're meeting them where they are. And so they could be a brand new writer, they could be very experienced, they could be a fairly newish writer with a lot of success. They could be somebody been working for a long time and just haven't been able to make it work. So finding out where they are, as we just heard, listening is the first role of the mentor, and hearing what the struggles are. Quite often, if someone is seeking out your help, I mean, I find that a lot of my clients, especially new clients, come from what I call feedback damage. So of course, there are many people who give excellent and fantastic and caring and thoughtful and thorough feedback, and there are others who don't. And when it's not working is when the writer actually doesn't understand, or if they do understand, they can't own it. They don't know that, in fact, it doesn't ring any bells for them. So my first question will often be, well, does this ring bells for you, what you heard? Does that you go, oh yeah, yeah, I tend to do that, and hear what the responses are. So finding out where they are and how they're doing, and then from there you decide what are going to be the things you work on first. So it would be impossible to come at this in a very strict kind of, for me anyway, kind of, we have to do this, then we do that, then we do this. And this is more important than that because all of it's important. Yeah.
I'd love to add something to that because you brought up a really good point about, people being damaged by criticism and feedback. And it just occurred to me that we're kind of like doctors. We try to, patch up their self-esteem and bring them back to their own voice. It just occurred to me.
Yeah, I have been called a therapist from time to time, and that's not because we get into a lot of personal life issues. Sometimes it comes up if it's involved in the writing. It has to do with what has already been said about that sense of esteem, of understanding that everyone has the capacity to write. It's just accessing that. Anyway.
James, do you want to jump in?
Yes, I think that's a good question. Those were really good responses. And what is the most valuable? Everything that I've heard so far is really important, and I think what most valuable means to me is making sure that you learn how to separate your ego from your craft. It's really important. I think when I see writers develop, I've had writers work with me for years, and watching the way a writer that's fairly new talk about their own writing and the way I would talk to them about their own writing changes over time, because we don't get thicker skins. What we get is we get more, we learn more about how words are put together and how writing is done. And when we write something that's good, we begin to realize what good looks like, and we write well, and as time goes by, with the right kind of instruction. But I have to keep my ego out of it. I'm not trying to make them write like me. I'm just trying to find out what they need to develop their writing skills to a point where they can pull their ego out of the situation, and they can just go, yeah, this is where I'm really good at this, but I couldn't write dialogue if my life depended on it. And I've got to work on dialogue. And there's ways you can practice that. And there are things you can do to improve the kind of thing that you don't have a knack for. See, some writers have a knack for different things. You were saying earlier, Sherry, about having a particular skill in writing atmosphere. Some people are really good at dialogue, and they can write dialogue for page after page after page. There's no setting at all. They're basically writing plays. But getting that person to realize they've got to kind of put people in a three-dimensional stage, or put them on a stage where they're interacting with the world around them while they're interacting on the page, I think is important. And it takes time, and it takes, like you were both saying about the word therapist, but we're not therapists. What we have to do is coax people into trying things that they think are scary for them. And over time, you realize you're not scared anymore. It's amazing to watch people who have been writing for a while, and I'm talking years, on their second, third novel, who are writing at a level they would never have imagined at the beginning. And it's just a comfort level with, yeah, I wrote a lousy chapter. I'm going to rewrite it from scratch. I don't like what I did, because they recognize it now. But earlier, they would never have been able to admit that sometimes we just don't write something really well, and they don't want to hear about it because their ego's attached to the fact that they're not writing as well as they want to yet. But that's what I think it is. Try and get the ego out of the process of learning how to write. And
That's
getting feedback
especially
too.
true with students in the college system, learning to write. That describes very much, what I encounter.
Well, that is actually a very good segue into our next question, though James has already kind of, dove into the topic already, but and I think we'll start with Sherry on this one. So developing craft is a long-term process, as James has just talked about. So do you have specific approaches to continual development of craft for your students, or personally, or what does that look like?
Your long-term clients like you? For me, it absolutely is long-term. That's the given. That's part of the reason I'm leaving Humber, is because I can no longer try to get students to do an organic process inside the academic year, fitting to certain semester schedules with certain deadlines. It kills me to see them short-circuiting honest and good development for the sake of meeting deadlines. But there are others who would say differently. There are others who mentor and teach who would say differently, that it's good for them. You know, I teach in a program that is very market driven. And, you know, there's sort of like, for your own good, you need to learn how to write for, yeah, exactly. So while the underlying idea is not a bad one, but the nature, I'm working, you know, with these particular students, I'm working in film, although I coach writers in all disciplines. There's the problem is the market changes all the time. And also, again, I come back to the thing of developing writers. So you're developing a writer over the long haul. That's a journey that goes on all their life and your life. And, you know, Colleen has taught me as much as I've taught Colleen also. I've learned from her. I've learned about the thriller genre. I've learned about, you know, how to create really effective suspense. I'm not sure that I could have taught that. And so from her, I gain that insight just through the long haul working, when I read her work and think, oh, that was really clever how she did that. And so, you know, picking up on the comment about ego, which is so important. It's important for me to not think that I'm right all the time. To be able to say that, you know, I notice that, if not with Colleen per se, but with other clients that or students, that if I'm clinging to my own perspective on this particular situation, choices being made by a writer, something's going on for me with that. And so trying to understand what that is it an impatience? Is it a, you know, usually when I become like that, it's because I've become disconnected from faith in the writer for some reason. And so trying to figure out, okay, what's it worth it to me with that student who's really challenging and who has, doesn't seem to be very interested in what you have to say, doesn't really want to engage, doesn't work hard. You know, that then you find yourself changing the way you do the work. So it's a long haul for me. It's a long haul for my development with that particular writer. And then at the same time, it's a long haul. I think that's why I think with Colleen's books, we haven't, you know, Colleen eventually found publishing interest, and then we suddenly were on deadlines. It's like, oh, geez, how much time have we got? Okay. So, but by that time, so much development had occurred that she was disciplined. She was in a place where she could do that. And we're now on the third one, the third book, which is, it's just been incredible. I still read the first one out of, you know, it's on my bedside table just because I enjoy the characters and the storytelling so much. It's fun. Anyway, on to the next person.
So, yeah, so I think you've got me. I'm thinking about the novel now because you've been talking about that. So anyway,
I'll go.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll go. I'll take you off the hook. I take at least 2 or 3 courses a year. As a mentor, I'm never satisfied, and you can't get to the point where you think there's nothing I can't learn, or there's something I haven't seen yet. because there are so many fabulous writers out there offering workshops. So Sue and I, when Ellen Bass, in terms of poetry, if you're a poet and you haven't taken an Ellen Bass workshop, you should be kicking yourself, because she's the best educator in terms of poetry, an energy about poetry and a knowledge level of poetry that is astonishing. I'm always in a state of surprise around her. And we took two of her. We took one on revision, which was really something, and another workshop back in the summer. The beautiful thing is that she lives in California and she's doing these online. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people take her workshops at a time, but she makes it feel like you're right there in the room with her. So it's important, I think, to constantly keep your mind open and be exposing yourself to good writers, people that you have a real respect for, and learn new things from them. And it's also kind of cool to be a student and not the mentor, and remember that you have people, holding people in esteem. And I think some of the other things I would say, make sure you have a writing practice, like Sue's pajama writing. It's important to have your own writing practice and keep writing to keep yourself fresh. It's important to be fresh as well. Even if you're not working on a big project, it's important to get that pen to paper. I'm an old bugger, so I write with a pen. But keep yourself busy writing something. The bigger the project, the better. And the other one was keep sending your work out. Nothing keeps you thinking about how good you are or how good your students are is by urging them to send their work out. Take a chapter you really liked, send it out as a short convert it into a short story. Keeping people thinking about publication helps them to stay sharp and want to know more. Those are that's to me, that's it.
Wow,
I'm done.
You had a bunch of really good points in there. I like the thing about, I was curious when you were talking about when you're an actual student, I guess you're learning both
Yes.
as a writer and as an instructor at the same time, right?
Yes.
You sort of
Yes.
learn, yeah, fascinating.
And it gives me all kinds of good ideas for other workshops where I can help all the people I mentor. So, but it's so exciting to learn new things. It always is.
Deepan.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, so I absolutely and unequivocally agree that taking lots of workshops, and I put it in the chat there, I do write some poetry, but taking an Ellen Bass workshop, just to give her a little plug there, will have you thinking a different way about language and about all kinds of things. Like I only took a weekend with her, and it changed everything for how I write. Quite a profound experience. So yeah, taking lots of workshops. I went to Los Angeles with Sue and took a Jack Grapes week. He teaches online now. Again, really different way of approaching writing. His little techniques, he calls it method writing, and gets you in deep really fast. And so some of his techniques I use in my workshops, but same thing. It gave me new tools as a writer, and it gave me new tools as a mentor. And that just, never stops, taking workshops and listening to other people and learning and using those things. But especially I think in the process of mentoring and of your own writing is taking creative risks. I think Sherry mentioned it, going a little outside your comfort zone, trying something. That's what the workshops will often do. They'll offer you another way in, coming in slant. And now I get to talk about what Sherry said that really had a major impact on my writing. And actually the novel that just got asked for, was you use the term a sacred image.
I was just about to bring it up again.
My God. And so when I think of the really important things, what I consider important in my own work, they always have a pivotal sacred image. Even if like this one, it was a woman, roads worker. And I thought, and just seeing her working with all these men on the road, you know, shoveling roadkill. Who is she? You know, it was just this image, and it started the whole novel, and same with the next one. Anyway, just those little nuggets that just make you think about writing in a different way, and you take them and then you give them to your people.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
The sacred image is kind of a pillar of my, when I do instruct, and through workshops and so on. And it, because it came out of that. Is it okay to talk about this now, or am I getting us off course? Okay. It came out of working partly with damaged writers. And so what I would say to them is, I usually discovered that the writing block had occurred because the thing that was sacred to them had been impacted, there's this in film, there's this community, this agency called the Harold Greenberg Fund. And the Harold Greenberg Fund are notorious feedback writers. They're just horrible. They just rip things, screenplays to shreds. And so when filmmakers and writers tell me they're waiting for the Greenberg Fund, I would be, okay, let's call me that day. But one of what I would usually discover is that the thing that had been said, oh, you can't do that, you have to take it out, it can't stay, was the thing that was actually most important to that writer. And I don't mean like a darling in that sort of famous sense. I mean in the sense of the reason they were writing. And that I often, even now, will make my students go back, because I usually equate the sacred image with the very first moment when you got excited and knew you had to do this. So if you're looking back and you go, oh that's it. That was that moment when I heard this or I read that and I knew that was it. And then I just say, we're going to put a protective shield around that thing. And that thing is I'm never going to say to you, we have to cut that. You may find that you don't end up including that moment in particular in your work. You may find that it didn't need it after all. But I'm never going to tell you that you can't include it. And where this began was a woman who I was working with who'd had that kind of feedback. And when I came down to the central thing, I said, tell me about what made you want to write this. And she said, well, we were clearing out my grandparents' home. And it's sort of almost, it will sound almost like a cliche, but there was a grandfather clock that had the children's heights measured out on the side of and she said, I looked at that clock and I saw those little markers on the side of the clock and I knew they were chapters. So, John 17, Sally, 6, and so on. And so that structure is what had been criticized. So I think, okay, what if we go back to that thing that you knew first of all? Because I do think myself, and I don't mean this in a religious sense, but I do think there is something sacred going on. There is something almost holy going on in the moment of that conception. And so we say, let's put a protective space around that and say, we'll figure out how to use it. What's the best way to use it? And you may make the decision eventually that it doesn't belong in the project, but it's not up for grabs. So yeah, just to explain it a little. Sorry, I took us off course there.
Okay. And yeah, I definitely had a sacred image at the start of my first book, which didn't end up being in the book, but I'm on the third book now, and I still go back to that sacred image all the time, just to ground yourself and remember why you were writing the story in the first place. So our next question is, how can writers address a lack of motivation or lack of esteem in their work? And I mean, we sort of touched on a lot of this stuff already, but if James, you want to start on this one?
I tried several inebriants over the years. Alcohol is the Ernest Hemingway could do it. Many, many writers can be drunks and write well. So alcohol's there. All the other drugs suck. Don't try anything else, because I've tried writing on every other substance, and not everyone. I didn't do crack, but I didn't think I could write on crack anyway. But your brain goes dull. You can't write on any other drugs. But alcohol, yeah, you can do that. The other thing, I'm kidding, of course. I think self-esteem and motivation is you can get writer's block and it comes out of nowhere and it sucks. It can drain you dry. But I think there's two ways around it that I've found over the years. One is the AWA method. I'm not trying to sell it for that reason, but in the AWA method, you put your pen down and you write without stopping for 20 minutes. You don't even think about what you're going to say. You just start writing. And when you got nothing to say, guess what? You've got something to say. Or you may write for 20 minutes and it's gibberish. But the point is something's coming out of your skull. And you may get back into the groove just by writing. And I think the other one is stay in a community of writers. Be around other writers. If you've got if you're really feeling low, contact them and tell them that you can't get going. You never know. Your fellow writer friends have all been there too. They could come up with an idea. Once again, alcohol with other people is even better than by yourself, but you can always talk it through or ask them to look at a story, or maybe they'll give you one of their stories to look at or one of their poems. Say, would you look at this for me? There's so many things we can do as writers to help each other, and be generous that way. Be generous and be nice. Don't be critical when people are down, but it happens.
Nice, thank you. Deepan, do you want to add anything?
I sure do. I think Sue said this. I think she was quoting someone else, but I'll just attribute her to it. She just said, lower the bar and keep writing. And I think, a lot of that lack of motivation or fear is because, we think we're not going to write something stupendous. So just lower the bar and keep writing. One of the other facilitators that I've worked with, who I adore, is Barbara Turner Veselago, and she writing without a parachute, the art of free fall writing. And she how her workshops go is you're left for the morning to write up to 12 pages to submit in the afternoon. And what she encourages you to do is like that, just like the AWA method, only you're alone, to write whatever comes up, even if it begins with, there's a bird outside my window, or I don't know what to write, and write until you hit that place that shimmers, that has some energy for you. And then you go towards that energy. And one of her other precepts is to write fearward, or to write what you don't want to write, which is sometimes a thing that will take you into some much deeper writing. I was listening yesterday to, oh my God, her brain just went out of my brain. Not Jennifer Manuel. Anyway, she has the podcast QWERTY, and she interviews writers. And what the tip that this writer gave was to keep it really small, to write in a really cheap spiral notebook with a really cheap pen. So, and I thought that was really funny, because it's, we like to get our nice, beautiful notebooks and our beautiful pens. I do. But I thought, well, that was interesting, because she said, then your expectations, we might shy away from a beautiful notebook with a beautiful pen because we think we're not going to, measure up. So if you have something really cheap, then you just write, and it won't, you won't have that such investment in it. Just thinking about, the blinking cursor, the blank notebook, and how intimidating that can be. Sometimes that's what keeps us from writing. And the other thing is accountability. Like James said, find a writing community, get a mentor or even just a writing buddy, and promise, okay, on Friday or in 2 weeks, I'm going to give you 10 pages. And whether you're taking a course or you do it just on your own, that accountability piece, it's like this pajama writing, or the Creative Academy is another online resource where you can just sit with other writers for free and show up and write. So those are some of my little tips, but definitely lower the bar and keep writing.
Sherry, do you want to finish us off?
I think I just come back to the sacred image. I always, when people are stuck, I always go back to, I think of it as the well. So go back to that moment when you first had the idea. Why were you excited? What was it you were looking forward to doing? Have you done that thing yet? I also firmly believe in writing out of sequence. So as maybe not, not by determination, but as it comes up organically. So a lot of writers feel they have to write at the beginning and move through to the end. And some people believe in outlines and some don't, and so on. I always think, what's the scene that's in your head right now? What is it that's in your head? Oh yeah, but it's like way down I haven't got there yet. And there's a lot of belief that you can't write that scene without knowing all the stuff that came before it, without having written everything that came before. And you absolutely can write out of sequence, and it can actually, it won't stay that way. It will change, but you will have a chance, you will get some kind of illumination usually, or some kind of, sort of spark again from writing the thing that you actually do know, right? And coming back to that. So, yeah.
And I remember one time.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in writing out of sequence as well. I've seen some really good books written that way, really good books. It's a great way to learn your characters very quickly and really get into them. It's to let them do their thing.
It's
amazing.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that others love that too. That's really good.
Yeah, because you can jig it later, but when you're creating the story, just let it come out.
Yeah, and I just on top to sort of reiterate that is that I remember Sherry saying at one point, write the scene that pulls you in your gut, kind of thing. And and I've done that many times, just sat down and say, okay, what I'm going to write today, and just sit there for a minute and say, okay, which sort of possible storyline is the one that pulls me in the gut the most, and then off you go, and it's great. So we have almost done, we've got about 5 minutes left before the end of our hour. So I wanted to open it up to the floor to see if anybody else had any questions they wanted to ask our panelists. You'll have to unmute yourself if you actually want to speak, though.
Okay, it's Bruce Hanson. And as soon as I find out what I did with my notes, which could take me a while on the screen, I'll come up with a couple of things. Yeah, okay, here's my basic question, and then I'll explain where I'm kind of not stuck, but so I've got 3 projects going on at the same time. Sorry?
I don't know how you do 3 projects at a time.
Well, you don't, that's the problem, but that's a different problem. So the base question is, when do you stop editing? And as an example, my collection of short stories, which have been written over many, many years, I've gone through them, I've edited them, I've taken them through my writing group, and every time I go back and look, as was said, you continue to learn more. And I go back to one and I go, oh, yeah, I got to do some work on this. This is not as good as I thought it was. And this could go on for the rest of my life. And I'll never get to end of job. So when do you stop editing? And that can go to any of the 3.
Have you sent any of them out?
I have entered contests, and I've placed in several of them have been recognized in competitions. I haven't sent any out for publication as such. I sent the collection out for publication once or twice, but that's it in terms of sending them out.
The reason I asked is because my rule of thumb is that once I've sent it to a publisher, I never touch it again. Or I send it to a magazine, I don't touch it again. Because I've made a decision that it's good enough for a stranger to read it now, and I'm going to let it sit. And because I know that urge to edit, and it's never good enough. And there's a different way I could rewrite this scene. This happens to me with poetry all the time. I've got poems, I've got 38 versions. And I think it's the best thing I've ever written. But if I took 5 random poems of mine and put it with that one and had it read by a group of people, they would never pick that one as a good one. So I've killed the goddamn poem by over editing it. And once in a while, I'm lucky. I'll show something to Sue and I'll say, what do you think? And she'll go, what have you done? Try to avoid editing. To me, if you can take it right between the eyes, editing is a way of not moving on. It's a way of working something so long that you don't want to leave it. And I think it's important to try to settle and move ahead. Unless you get professional feedback on the actual pieces, or feedback from someone that you would respect as a short story writer, that's what I would do next. If you've been working on them this long, sending them out as a way to find out if they're ready, and sending them to contests as a way to find out if they're ready. The problem in our market today is that it's hard to get collections of short stories written or published. It's very difficult. You pretty well have to go the magazine route. But that's all I'm going to say. Okay. Yeah, and I just finished a book, or most of the book, and I can't think of the title or the author now, but it's about it's about publishing short stories. And he said the same thing. So I've heard the same thing twice now in a short period of time. I am going to go the self-publishing route. Just because that's one way I'll get it out, and I'll learn how to publish a book, and I'm going to have some fun doing it, because I really don't think I'm going to retire based upon my collection of short stories. But it doesn't mean I can't learn about publishing and have some fun out there. I highly recommend that you do that for one reason, and that is you let them go. Let them go. You've got a zillion more. You've got lots of good stories left in you. You're still a young man. You've got a lot of good stories left in you. Let them go, push them out into the world and say, here's what I did so far. Now I can work on my new stuff. At 67, that's what I recommend. At 67, I'm not so young, so I got to push them out the door for another reason. You're younger than me, buddy. Okay, thank you. Let them go. Let them go. Thank you. Move on to new stuff.
So that you become a different and stronger writer as you go along. And so it's natural for you to look at work that you did even a year ago and see it differently, because you're seeing the writer that was a year ago. And so it's very tempting to want to bring the work that you poured your heart and soul into up to speed with the writer you are now, right? And that's part of how we get into the rewriting rut. And then that, of course, keeps going, right? It keeps going on and on. So it's just following on what James is, I think, excellent advice. I think it can be a way of saying, I can honor that this was written at this time of my writing life, and it's pretty darn good. Another thing that can happen is, but now I'm different. I'm moving. I'm the next thing I write will show me at this stage of my writing. I think also we can sometimes assume if something hasn't been accepted to journals or to magazines or whatever, that therefore it must need work. And especially if, classically you don't get feedback, you just get a thanks for submitting, I'm sorry, we won't at this time, right? There's a temptation to go, oh, I didn't make an impression. It's not good enough. And so you go back and you think, I need to, buff it up so that it will make an impression, but it's not at all like that. I've sat on many, many juries, not for fiction, but for drama and for film, in which it is not at all about, half the time you're going, oh man, a lot of talent there. Oh, that project just don't think we can fund because we can't do this, this, and this, right? And there are other reasons why people turn projects down. But writers, we're so sensitive, we internalize that. So we tend to think, oh, okay, I need to work on it. But most of the time, unless you have specific critique that's coming to you, that makes sense to you, that resonates with you, most of the time you say, oh, this is who I was at this point when I was writing. And it's pretty good. Now I'm gonna become, the next thing I do is gonna be who I am now as a writer.
Thank you. Yeah. Good advice.
Yes, that was excellent. I felt like you were speaking directly to me on that one, Shirley. Very good.
Me too.
Well, we are 5 minutes after 8, and we were supposed to wrap this up at 8 o'clock. So I want to thank all of our panelists. That was the fastest hour ever. It was truly enjoyable, and
I actually thought it was going to be 2 hours. Okay.
We could have talked for a very long time. I think this is an endless topic, and I think one we all love to discuss. So thank you for sharing your insights and I'm going to turn it over to Linda now, and she's going to talk a little bit about the open mic that comes after this. So.
Yeah, do we have anyone who wants to read anything, read any of their work for us? It's open mic time for our word uppers.
Meaning tonight or at another time?
No, right now.
Well, you know me, Linda. I'm running out of stuff, but I'll step up to the mic. But it'll be nice.
Most excellent. Good.
I'd like to have somebody else go first, and that way we'll.
Can I just add something before we go ahead with the open mic part? I totally agree with the idea of accountability, of belonging to a group where they're expecting your work to be read at a particular time, because I find, like, I belong to 2 groups, and of course over the holidays we had a couple of weeks off, and I made all these big plans of all the things I was going to accomplish in my writing while I was off. I accomplished nothing because it was like I didn't have to answer to anybody. So, once all of a sudden our groups are coming up again, and I'm going, oh, I've got to get that chapter ready for tonight. I got to get this other chapter ready for Wednesday.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
I didn't do a damn thing either over the holidays.
So accountability is a great thing, because then
it is
to some kind of motivation.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted to say. Just thank you for, kind of addressing all the things about the writing craft. It's sometimes a hard road to travel. Other times it's so much fun.
I would agree with you too, Marilyn, in terms of accountability. I think that's one of the strengths of a writing mentor as well, is that if you've got an appointment with them, then you are, you got to be submitting something, whether you're ready or not. So I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Well, as an addition, right?
No, I was just making a little side comment to Colleen.
I remember when I first went to Anna Mackay-Smith for coaching to get me back into the writing, and she had this wonderful questionnaire and everything, and she said, so how many pages do you think you could have, like, in a couple of weeks? And I said, oh, I could probably do 10 pages. And she said, okay, so on August the 10th I'll see those 10 pages. And I'm like, what? What? Yeah. Oh, okay. It's like, oh yeah, I could do 10 pages. And then the actual accountability piece came in and like, oh, okay, I guess I better do it then.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
If you're like me, you start writing on the 9th.
Or the day
I
of.
write under pressure. That's it. I gotta have that pressure.
That's most people. That's most people. But there's an
Yes.
addition to. So I'm in a writing crit. I guess we call it a crit group. It's more of a brainstorm group where I find it's not just that you have to write and have something for them to read by a certain date, but so they do a sort of an edit. We've been using Google Docs where we go through each other's work and we do an edit and it's sort of a critique. But then when we have we're trying to figure out a character development, what we can do better with the plot or anything like that. The brainstorming is an incredible add, So yeah, you have to write something for the group, but the group actually helps you. It's like you've got 5 or 6 extra people helping you write a book, a much better book than you could possibly do on your own. And writing is already a very solitary thing. I'm very much a loner. I can't tell you how much I love this.
So
Yeah,
I
we
would
offer
ask
the.
you, Linda, in your groups, do you always talk about the strengths in the work first before you go in and start offering suggestions? Because to me, that's really important.
No, and this is a great group. Marilyn's in the group with me, actually. So for me, when I joined it, I said we have to do I call it a shit sandwich. So you have the bread is the nice stuff. Start off with what you like, then go into what's needs work, and then end with what you like, so that you feel like you still have reason to write. So everyone's very, very good about that naturally, regardless in that group. But yeah, I don't think I could be in a group that did nothing but dug at all the wrong.
Hi.
It's really something when you find a group that where you can give the feedback to them and they give feedback to you, where everybody's working to help each other in the group. They're not as common as you might think. When you get a group where you have people that are willing to read your work and give you feedback like that, and you have a group of people, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, and you're actually doing it, and you're doing it all the time, that is a blessing.
Yeah, weekly.
It is very hard to make a group like that stick together. And you're lucky. Your writing will get so much better over time. You'll just be amazed. You're lucky.
Yeah, I am feeling really grateful because I've tried several times to like create a group or join a group. So I'm so grateful. It's not funny. Yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky. Takes work to make it work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Did I just add something? Sorry, can you hear me? I didn't put my video on because I have a really bad cold, and I thought you don't need to see my red nose and my Kleenex. But
is that Dorothy?
It's Dorothy.
Is that Dorothy?
I wondered if that was you, Dorothy.
My email address, my email address is Glosafan, and so for some reason that comes up all the time instead of my name whenever I Zoom. I don't know why. But geez, there's so many things I want to say here, and I know I have to shut up because I'm not a panelist, but geez, you guys were so great. And and I can't say enough about the wonderful comments you made. And the idea of the sacred image, I just latch right onto that because I think that's so important. I also have a sacred space that sacred spaces, I guess, which are important to me. I'm not familiar with the AWA method. I've never taken that, but Barbara Turner-Veselago, if you get a chance to take a course with her, just amazing. And you just improve so much. And it's amazing how you improve so much just by having everything accepted to begin with, at least, And the whole idea of a group. Yeah, I also work with a group with Kenneth Sherman. He's a Toronto poet. And we've been working together for about, 16, 17 years. A few people have come and gone in the group, but basically same core in the group. And it is amazing to have that. And we meet every week. And now we're Zooming, which is good. So anyhow, I just wanted to add those things just to say thank you to everybody involved here. What a great panel discussion this has been. I was feeling so ill today, I almost didn't show up, and you don't have to look at me for that reason. But anyway, thank
Well,
you.
it's great to hear your voice. Great to hear your
Yeah.
voice.
And
Yes.
Dorothy, I just want to say that I think that your poetry is filled with sacred images. Your poetry is just overflows with them. So
Thank you, Deepam. I'm reading at the Art Bar this Tuesday if you get a chance to,
yes,
if you have nothing better
Oh,
to
is it?
do.
Oh, is it? It's this Tuesday?
It's this coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
highly recommend that to everybody.
It's a little
Dorothy.
strange because you have to do a recording, like a video, half-hour video of yourself reading your poems and reading to your camera. Just is
Oh.
strange. Like you're standing there reading to your video camera, you know. But anyway, I did it. We'll see how it goes.
You're a pro. You're a pro. You're always really good in front of the mic.
I'm aware
Amazing
that
though, you count on the audience. It's funny how when you read, you don't know how much that
Exactly.
audience means to you.
Oh, that special fear you get when you look out on a bunch of faces looking at you,
Hmm.
and they're going, "Impress me." With your poetry. Anyway, sorry, I shouldn't laugh because you're so bloody good at it. I can make fun of you.
Oh yeah, you can make fun of me. No problem.
Okay, cool. Hope to see you and John some point this year.
Oh, I know. I just hope to see people in real time.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Sherry?
I was just going to say that I'm so aware that Bruce has volunteered to do open mic,
Yes.
and that vulnerable place where you're waiting to share your work and then we all get distracted.
I'm good with it. It's great.
You're good with it, okay.
It's great
So although
conversation
I'm really
and-
glad to hear from other people as
Yeah.
well. I didn't mean that. I was just feeling for you that it was like getting up there.
Hey, I'm waiting. I'd love to hear you. I'd love to hear you.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
are you
I'm
ready,
afraid there's
Bruce?
nobody ahead of you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was offering for other people to talk, so.
That's
word
true,
agreed
you were,
first,
yes.
So.
You might as well jump right in, Bruce.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'll jump right in with one piece of business, actually a law of physics, which relates to something a few of you said, and Marilyn mentioned about importance of having meetings to keep the writing going. And that's a law of physics we used in business, which was work expands to fill the time allotted. So you want to have those deadlines. Okay, what I'm going to read is from a short story that was written some time ago. It got an honorable mention in 2014 in Can Write competition, along with one of Deepam's. She got an honorable mention in the same contest. And this is the second half. I started reading I did the first half in November. And I didn't make it in December. So you're going to get it now. The second half, for those who haven't heard it, I'll just give a quick intro. It's about a girl in middle grade school. Her father is not in the family or house anymore because of abuse, and there's a court order against him being there or showing up at the house. She wakes up out of a nightmare and realizes the nightmare is a floor below her. So I'll pick up just above where I left off 2 months ago. And this is one that I read getting ready for today, and I went, oh my goodness, there's things I would do so different. So anyway, with that, Carly peeked downstairs. Her mother was curled up on the floor. Her father stood with his back to the staircase. She ran past the top of the stairs, fighting back more tears. I'm going to see the kids, he boomed out. Move your lazy ass and get that coffee. Carly ran to her mother's room, certain her pounding heart could be heard throughout the house. Hey, Carly, I'm home. Wake up, baby. Daddy's come to see you. Down the hall, Carly's bedroom door creaked. She grabbed the phone off her mother's night table. It slipped through her trembling hands and hit the hardwood floor with a bang. Carly, where are you? Dropping to her knees, she grasped the phone and jabbed 911. Her father filled the open doorway. Why are you in our bedroom? She clutched the phone. Someone answered. Carly didn't wait for the woman to finish. 341 Oakwood Drive. It's an emergency. Her father strode forward and grabbed the receiver. She fought hard for control, but her fingers burned as he tore the lifeline from her hands. He covered the mouthpiece. Bringing his face close to hers, he rasped. Now, why would you do that, Carly? I just came to visit. He slowly raised the receiver to his ear. No, miss. Yeah. Carly saw his lips moving, but the voice flowed from another time. It was so gentle and confident. It was a voice that used to soothe her when she scraped a knee, the same voice that lulled her to sleep when she awoke from a nightmare. Now it was her nightmare, as it erased her hope. No problem, really. Just a tween angry about being grounded. Trying to cause a little mischief. Sorry for the trouble. Yes, I'm certain. Thank you. Goodbye. Terrified, Carly watched as he ripped the phone line from the wall. She cowered below him, wishing for strength that didn't come. You're getting to be no better than your mother. He dragged the back of his hand across his mouth. As he turned to leave, he lobbed the phone over her shoulder. It hit the wall an inch from her left ear. Leave her alone. Her mother's scream came from just outside the room. Carly grabbed the edge of the night table and pulled herself up. It's okay, Mom. He didn't hurt me. She ran for the door as her father disappeared into the hallway. Out of my way. His loathing intonation stung her senses. A loud thud and a moan. Carly scrambled out of the bedroom. Arms outstretched towards her, Carly's mother slid down the wall and collapsed on the floor. Eyes foggy, stinging. Carly knelt and pulled her mother's head onto her lap. Grunting, her father stomped away and opened the door to Wendy's room. Wendy, Daddy's home. He stepped inside. Are you awake? That's a good girl. Give Daddy a hug. Carly brushed back her mother's hair. Mommy, are you okay? A swollen eye blinked open. I'm fine, honey. The endearment wheezed through clenched teeth. Carly helped her mother to her feet, and together they hobbled to her sister's room. Her father sat on the bed with Wendy snuggled in his arms. Carly heard and sighed as she listened. Daddy, why don't you come home? I am home. You can't stay, can you? Wendy touched his cheek. No, I can't stay. Mommy won't let me. Daddy, I want to play in the park with you like we used to. I'd like that too, sweetheart. Sirens whined in the distance. Wendy, I have to go now. He rocked her in his arms. Please don't go, Daddy. I have to. Why won't they let you stay? Mommy doesn't like me seeing you. Tell her to let me come home. Will you do that, sweetheart? Carly watched him tuck Wendy back under the covers and give her a soft kiss. How could he be so sweet and yet so terrible? He stopped at the bedroom door and stared at Carly and her mother. I'll be back. Carly fell to her knees and hugged her mother's shaking legs. She could hear him downstairs, running through the kitchen to the back door, pushing back door. Pulsing red and blue lights broke through the bedroom windows, painting the walls above her. The doorbell rang. I called the police, Mommy. I got him to leave, didn't I? Yes, darling, you did. But he'll be back. Mommy, when will the nightmares stop? I just want them to stop. That's the end. The name, by the way, was Daddy's Home.
Speaking of compelling, that was very compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yeah, it's always kind of hard to read on this as opposed to being in the room.
Well, it's just different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a good read.
You read very well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for listening. It's all practice.
It is.
Yeah, it does. It does take practice too. That's another way of, I mean, we were talking earlier about getting in the practice of writing. That's how you become a good writer. Getting in the practice of reading your work is another part of the art, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
that's
Ruth-
a good point because it changes when you've written something and then when you read it aloud, you can hear the things that maybe aren't working that your eyes would just skip over on the written page.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's very
Yes.
much an advice to follow is to read your work aloud.
It's very hard to write that kind of content meaningfully and in a way that is, evocative. It's a hard line to find that between sort of evoking something which by its own nature as activity of the characters presupposes a certain kind of response. And so it's hard to write that. So I heard some really effective finding of that line between what is enough and too much. What is enough and too much? So I really liked your use of gestures. And I dragged a hand across his mouth and slumping against the wall of her later. Because I think physical gestures tell us so much about character, not just what they say, but how their bodies behave, how their bodies respond. So, yeah,
Thank you.
good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
There's that you've written in the past tense, and the dialogue, which is very vivid, is in the present tense, obviously, because we're pausing the past tense to be in the present tense. I'm not that I want you to do more revising if this is one of those ones you need to let go, but I'm wondering if you've considered writing all of it in the present tense, because I think that the characters, the immediacy of the experience, but that would just be an experiment.
Yeah, no, it actually hit me when I was reading it before the meeting that it could work in present tense. I write in both,
Mm-hmm.
and usually it's just the way the story comes out. Some seem
Right.
a bit better one way than the other, and it's rare that I change them once they're written. But yeah, this could definitely be effective in present tense. It is based on a true story as well.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't describe the actual situation that I was told, but it's based on conversations we had with someone who's visiting their mother in Canada, and over a dinner or before the dinner, and I decided one day I would write it, something not about them or the stories they told, but about the general idea and the stalking and stuff that was involved. So it did come from someplace outside of my head.
I thought it was particularly astute how calmly he's manipulating the emotions of those little children by saying, "Mommy won't let me stay. Mommy, we should talk to Mommy about that." The way he's using those children is so insidious. It's blood curdling. Actually, my blood was running cold because he's so calm. Yeah, and then he's going to run out the door at the end. But just that it would have been easy to make him, or not easy, maybe a cliche to make him angry and crazy, and no, he's as calm as can be. And I think it's even more scary because he is. But his manipulation of the children is the thing that really stays with me.
I was so relieved when I heard the sirens going.
Me too.
Out of the wall. I'm thinking, oh, I hope that got through. And it's like, oh, phew, yeah, it's coming. came at a really good time.
Yes.
Well, thanks.
Anyway, thank you very much, everybody.
We don't
Thanks for
usually
reading.
get,
I got to get going.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Sherry,
Great
so
to see
good
you again,
see you
Sherry.
Great to see
Okay.
you all. Thank you so much for tonight. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you, Bruce, for sharing, and thank you, everybody, for listening and being a part of it.
Yes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, I'll
Great
do
job.
the sign off then, unless we have anyone else to read. I'm thinking no, right? So the next word up is February 11th. We're creating, we're doing a romance themed panel because
I'll
we're
be
only a
there.
few days before. Yeah, all right. So it's only a few days before, you know.
With alcohol.
that's why
No,
I've
maybe
never.
not.
Well, you're not
Maybe
like
I
no
love
one's
that.
driving somewhere. No one's driving.
Take it. I just realized how bad that sounded. I really apologize. That wasn't supposed to sound like that.
No, it was great. I finally now understand why I've never had writer's block.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, so
Anyway,
February,
sorry.
just a few days before Valentine's Day. So we're doing not so much just for romance writers, but for those of us who, like myself, struggle to put romance in our writing, creating the romantic element, keeping the sexual tension heated. So look for more information on our panelists at wordupberry.com, and our FB page, a Facebook page. And sign up for our newsletter to get your Zoom links. We send them about the Monday before. And thanks to Rhubarb Media for hosting our website, and to Check Energy for sponsoring our Zoom. That's it, folks.
Awesome.
Okay.
I enjoyed myself so much. Thank you very much. Keep it going up there in Barrie.
And thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
You
Thank
guys
you,
were wonderful.
Pam, James, and Sherry. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Have a good
Okay,
evening,
see you later.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.